Vralia didn't know the man in the corner booth was the Alpha King. She didn't know his ancestors had slaughtered her bloodline 2 centuries ago, burning an entire race to ash and erasing them from history. She didn't know that the strangeness in her blood, the one she'd glimpsed once and buried so deep she'd almost convinced herself it wasn't real, was the very thing his kingdom had tried to destroy. And she certainly didn't know that when she cut her hand on broken glass tonight, everything she believed about herself would shatter along with it. All she knew was exhaustion. 20 years old, wolfless in a world that worshipped the shift, and indentured to a man who counted her breaths like coins. The hollow lantern wasn't much. Warped timber walls, ale-stained floors, the lingering smell of smoke and regret. But it was the only life Vralia had ever known. And tonight, like every night, she just wanted it to end. She was stacking the last of the chairs when she felt it. Someone was watching her. Vralia's hands froze on the chair legs. The tavern was empty. She'd checked twice, bolted the door herself, heard the iron latch click into place. Yet the shadows in the far corner seemed thicker now, darker, as if something breathed within them. Then he moved. Not much. Just a shift of weight, a tilt of his head. But it was enough to catch the dying firelight, and Vralia's stomach dropped. A man sat in the booth she'd wiped down an hour ago. Tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in dark leathers that looked too fine for this part of the city. His hair was black as ink, pushed back from a face that belonged on ancient carvings. Sharp cheekbones, a jaw that could cut glass, and eyes. His eyes stopped her cold. Pale gold, almost luminous, watching her with an intensity that made her skin prickle. "We're closed." Vralia kept her voice flat, her hand drifting toward the cudgel beneath the bar. "Doors that way." He didn't move. "I'm not here for a drink." "Then you're definitely in the wrong place." The corner of his mouth twitched. Not quite a smile. "I'm here for you, Vralia." Her blood turned to ice. She hadn't given him her name. Brecken didn't let her speak to customers more than necessary, said her wolfless stench drove away business. "Who are you?" "Someone who's been looking for you for a very long time." He rose from the booth, and Vralia realized just how large he was. Not just tall, massive, the kind of build that came from years of combat, of running as something far more dangerous than human. Power rolled off him in waves, pressing against her chest like a physical weight. Every instinct screamed at her to run. The back door was 12 steps away. She could make it if she... "I'm not going to hurt you." His voice softened, and weariness bled through. Bone-deep exhaustion wrapped in iron control. "I just need to talk. Please." That single word, please, spoken like he'd forgotten how to ask for anything. Vralia's grip tightened on the cudgel, but she didn't move. "Talk fast." The stranger studied her for a long moment, those golden eyes cataloging every detail of her face. Then he reached into his coat and withdrew something small, a folded piece of parchment yellowed with age. He set it on the bar between them. "Do you know what this is?" Vralia didn't touch it. "Should I?" "It's a registry, from the Ashbourne Purge, 200 years ago." He watched her face carefully. A list of bloodlines marked for extermination. The words hung in the air like smoke. Vralia had heard whispers of the Purge. Everyone had. A dark chapter in the kingdom's history, when the old king had ordered the systematic execution of an entire race. The Lunaris, they'd been called. Moon-touched, silver-blooded, monsters, according to the histories. "What does that have to do with me?" "Your mother's name is on this list." He tapped the parchment. Descended from a line they thought they'd ended, but they missed one. A pregnant woman who fled into the northern wilds and was never found. Vralia's throat constricted. "My mother died when I was 3. I don't remember her." "I know, but I think she passed something to you. Something you've been hiding your entire life. Don't react. Don't give him anything." "I'm wolfless." Vralia forced a bitter laugh. "That's my big secret. No shift, no pack, no worth. Brecken reminds me daily. Wolfless. The stranger repeated the word like he was tasting it. Is that what you believe? That you're simply broken? I believe what I am. A defect. Nothing more. He stepped closer, and Vralia's heart hammered against her ribs. This close, she could smell him. Pine and wood smoke, and something wilder underneath. Something that made the hollow place inside her chest ache with recognition. You've never shifted, he said quietly. But you've felt things, haven't you? Pulled toward the full moon, hearing whispers you can't explain, and your blood. Vralia stopped breathing. When you bleed, it's not red. Is it? How does he know? How could he possibly? I've cut myself before. Her voice came out strangled. It's red. Normal. Small cuts, yes. Surface wounds. Your body learned to hide it. His eyes bore into hers. But if you bled deeply, truly bled, it would run silver. Like moonlight given form. Before you continue, please take a moment to like and subscribe. The room tilted. Vralia gripped the bar to steady herself, memories crashing through her. The accident when she was 12, the gash on her thigh that had wept something luminous before scabbing over. The way she'd hidden the stained cloth and never spoken of it. The terror that someone would see. What are you? She whispered. What do you want from me? The stranger straightened to his full height, and when he spoke, his voice carried the weight of thrones. My name is Raven Velmora. I am the Alpha King of the Eastern Territories. He let that settle before continuing. And I need your help to undo a genocide my bloodline committed, starting with finding my brother, who discovered the truth and vanished because of it. Vralia stared at him, the Alpha King, standing in Brecken's filthy tavern, asking a wolfless barmaid for help. You're insane. Possibly. Grief flickered across his face, or perhaps desperate hope. But my brother Cassian found evidence that survivors still exist. Lunaris descendants, hidden in plain sight. He was building a case to expose what our ancestors did, to make reparations. And 3 weeks ago, he disappeared. He pulled another item from his coat. A ring, silver metal etched with symbols that seemed to shimmer in the low light. This was delivered to me the night he vanished. It's his signet ring, the one he never removed. Raven's jaw tightened. There was blood on it, silver blood. Which means whoever took him knows exactly what he discovered. Vralia's gaze fixed on the ring. Even from a distance she felt a pull stir inside her, faint but undeniable, like a thread tugging at her ribs. Why come to me? Because you're what they tried to erase. Raven's voice dropped low. And because the Lunaris had abilities beyond shifting, they could sense lies, see guilt through touch. Some records suggest the most powerful could even return what they saw. Force the guilty to relive their own sins. They could touch objects and see their histories, read the memories trapped inside. Her stomach lurched. The flashes she'd had her whole life, images that didn't belong to her when she touched certain things. She'd thought she was going mad. You want me to read the ring? I want you to help me find my brother. He held her gaze. 7 days. That's all I'm asking. Help me trace what happened and I'll give you something in return. I don't want your gold. I'm not offering gold. Raven's expression hardened. I'm offering the truth about what you are. I have archives from before the purge. Journals, histories, bloodline records, everything my ancestors tried to burn. He paused. Help me find Cassian, and I'll give you back your heritage, your identity. The proof that you were never broken, just the last of something they feared too much to let survive. The weight of his offer pressed against her chest. 20 years of believing she was defective. 20 years of Brecken's cruelty, the pack's rejection, the hollow ache of not belonging anywhere. And this stranger, this king, was offering her the one thing she'd never dared want. Answers. If I refuse, then I walk away. And you never see me again. His voice was steady, but she caught the tension in his shoulders. I won't force you, Vralia. The Lunarists were taken against their will once. I won't repeat my ancestors' sins. She looked at the ring in his hand, felt that strange pull intensify, whispering at the edges of her awareness. Touch me, it seemed to say. See what I've seen. 7 days, she said slowly, and then I'm free to go. You have my word. Your word means nothing to me. You're the blood of the men who murdered my people. Raven flinched, actually flinched, and Vralia felt a grim satisfaction at landing the blow. Then tell me what would mean something. She considered him, the most powerful man in the kingdom, standing in a tavern that smelled of sour ale, asking a wolfless girl to name her terms. A blood oath, she said, sealed and binding, and if you break it, the magic takes your life, not mine. His golden eyes widened slightly. Then, slowly, he smiled. Not with arrogance, but with something that looked almost like respect. You have teeth, after all. You have no idea. He drew a blade from his belt, and the firelight caught its edge. Silver metal, just like the ring. Then let's make it official. Raven drew the blade across his palm without hesitation. Blood welled up. Red, ordinary. The blood of kings and killers alike. He held his hand out, waiting. Vralia took the knife. The handle was warm from his grip, and she hated how aware she was of that small detail. She pressed the edge to her own palm, bracing herself. Please be red. Please be normal. The cut was shallow, but enough. Vralia watched the wound, heart pounding. Red. Thank the gods. It was red. She exhaled and pressed her palm to his before she could lose her nerve. The moment their blood touched, the world exploded. Light, silver and blinding, erupted from their joined hands. Vralia gasped as something ancient and enormous crashed through her, a force that felt like moonlight given consciousness. It poured into the spaces she'd kept hollow her entire life, filling them with warmth and terror, and a recognition so profound it brought tears to her eyes. And beneath it all, wrapped around the magic of the oath, she felt him. Not just his hand in hers, but his essence, grief and guilt and desperate hope, loneliness that echoed her own, a weight of responsibility that had crushed him for years. She felt his heartbeat sync with hers, felt a lock turning somewhere deep inside her, one that had waited centuries to open. Raven's breath hitched. His golden eyes blazed brighter than she'd ever seen them. What? His voice cracked. What was that? Vralia yanked her hand back. The connection severed, leaving her cold and shaking. The oath is sealed. She barely recognized her own voice. That's all that matters. But they both knew it wasn't. Something had passed between them, far older than a simple blood oath. Something that made her want to step closer and run away in equal measure. Raven stared at his palm. The cut was already healing, but his expression remained shattered, stripped of that kingly composure. Tomorrow, he said finally, his voice rough. I'll send someone at dawn. And Brecken? I'll handle Brecken. A flash of cold fury crossed his face. You won't owe him another moment. He turned and walked toward the back door, the one Vralia knew she'd locked. How did you get in? She called after him. He paused, glancing over his shoulder. In the dim light, his eyes still held that strange glow. Some doors open for kings. A ghost of a smile. Others open for those who know how to ask. Then he was gone, melting into the night like he'd never existed. Vralia stood alone in the empty tavern, her palm tingling where his blood had mixed with hers. She pressed her hand to her chest, feeling her heart race. What have I done? Dawn arrived wrapped in mist. Vralia hadn't slept. She'd spent the night packing her meager belongings, 2 threadbare dresses, her mother's bone comb, a faded ribbon she'd kept since childhood without knowing why, and staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment of their encounter. The knock came precisely as the first light broke. She opened the door to find a woman in riding leathers, dark-skinned and sharp-eyed, with twin braids coiled at her temples like a crown. Vralia. The woman's voice was clipped, professional. I'm Sorith. His Majesty sent me. What about Brecken? Your debt to Brecken has been cleared. Your contract of indenture has been dissolved. Sorith's smile was thin and satisfied. You belong to no one now. The words hit Vralia like a physical blow. A lifetime of servitude erased overnight. She'd dreamed of this moment countless times, imagined how freedom would taste. It tasted like disbelief. She followed Sorith through the waking city in a daze. They passed through the merchant quarter, beyond the noble estates, until the cobblestones gave way to forest paths that seemed to swallow the world behind them. 2 hours of riding brought them to the mountains. The Velmoran stronghold rose from the stone itself, a fortress of black granite and silver veins, its towers reaching toward the clouds like claws. Banners bearing the wolf and moon crest snapped in the wind. Guards patrolled walls that could withstand armies. Home, Sorith said dryly. Try not to gawk. Inside, the fortress softened. Tapestries depicted hunts and battles, but also festivals, bonding ceremonies, children playing in moonlit gardens. Fires crackled in every hearth. Servants moved with purpose but without fear, nodding to Sorith as they passed. Vralia's room stole her breath. Larger than the entire upper floor of the hollow lantern, with a bed piled in furs, a copper tub already steaming, and windows overlooking a valley so beautiful it hurt to see. The king requests your presence at midday, Sorith said from the doorway. Rest until then. Eat something. You look half-starved. Then she was gone, and Vralia was alone with more luxury than she'd experienced in her entire life. She sank onto the bed, running her fingers over the soft furs. This isn't real. None of this is real. But the warmth was real. The silence, free of Brecken's shouts, the tavern's endless noise, was real. And the pull she felt toward a golden-eyed king, the one she couldn't explain or escape, that was real too. Raven was waiting in a chamber filled with relics. The room felt sacred. Stone walls lined with shelves holding objects wrapped in cloth, tagged with dates and names. A table dominated the center, covered in items arranged with careful precision. And standing beside it, bathed in light from narrow windows, the Alpha King looked less like royalty and more like a man who hadn't slept in weeks. Thank you for coming. Vralia approached slowly. You didn't give me much choice. I gave you every choice. His voice was quiet. You're here because you decided to be. She couldn't argue with that, so instead she looked at the table. The ring was there, Cassian's signet, along with other items. A torn piece of cloth stained with something dark. A journal with a cracked leather cover. A dagger with an obsidian handle. A lock of hair tied with silver thread. Each object seemed to pulse with hidden energy, calling to that strange place inside her she'd spent years trying to ignore. Where do I start? Wherever feels right. Raven moved to stand beside her, close enough that she felt his warmth. I'll be here if you need me. Vralia reached for the ring first. The moment her fingers closed around the cool metal, the world dissolved. Forest, running, branches tearing at his face as he flees. Behind him, howls. Not wolves hunting prey, but wolves hunting one of their own. He clutches papers to his chest, evidence that will damn his own bloodline. A voice echoes through the trees. The king's brother thinks he can expose us? Let him bleed silver too. Vralia gasped, dropping the ring. Her knees buckled, and strong hands caught her. Raven, his grip firm but gentle. What did you see? He was running, being hunted. She struggled to catch her breath. They knew what he'd found. They said he could bleed silver too. Raven's face went pale. Cassian isn't Lunaris. No, but whoever took him, they wanted to make it look like he was. To discredit him. She pressed a hand to her temple. There were papers. Evidence. He was trying to protect them. The journal was next. Vralia picked it up, and the vision came faster this time. A study, warm with firelight. Cassian. She recognized him now, younger than Raven but with the same strong jaw, writing furiously. The purge wasn't about monsters. It was about power. The Lunaris could sense truth from lies. They could see guilt in a touch. Our ancestors didn't fear their claws. They feared being seen. He pauses, looks up as footsteps approach. His expression shifts from focus to terror. Merrick, what are you? The vision shattered. Vralia came back to herself gasping, sweat beading on her forehead. Merrick, do you know that name? Raven had gone completely still. Merrick Thornwood, my father's former chancellor. He retired to the eastern provinces 2 years ago. He's not retired. He's the one who took Cassian. Danger flickered in Raven's eyes. You're certain? Your brother wrote it in this journal. The Lunaris weren't monsters, Raven. They could sense lies, see guilt through touch. That's why your ancestors exterminated them. She met his gaze. They were afraid of being known. The weight of that truth settled between them. Merrick was my father's most trusted advisor, Raven said slowly. He was there for every decision, every treaty, and every judgment. If the Lunaris could sense deception, then he had 2 centuries of lies to protect. Vralia reached for the dagger next, but Raven caught her wrist. You're shaking. You need to rest. I can keep going. You can barely stand. His thumb brushed across her pulse point and she felt that connection flare again, warm and electric and terrifying. The visions take something from you. I won't drain you dry on the first day. Your brother is out there. Every hour matters. And you matter too. The words came out rough, almost angry. You're not a tool to be used until you break. He stopped himself, jaw tightening. I'm what? Vralia asked softly. Raven released her wrist carefully, as if letting go cost him something. You're the first hope I've had in 3 weeks. His voice was barely above a whisper. I won't repay that by destroying you. He guided her to a chair, brought water, waited while she drank. His hands were steady, his attention absolute. And despite every warning screaming in her head, Vralia felt something inside her soften. She'd spent her whole life being used, overlooked, and discarded. No one had ever worried about breaking her before. Tomorrow, she said finally. We continue tomorrow. Raven nodded, but his eyes held hers a moment longer than necessary. Tomorrow. The word felt like a promise neither of them was ready to name. The next 4 days blurred together in a rhythm Vralia hadn't expected. Mornings were for visions. She worked through the remaining objects. The cloth revealed a hidden chamber beneath Merrick's estate. The lock of hair showed Cassian still alive, chained but breathing. A letter fragment exposed 3 more conspirators, lords who had benefited from the purge and feared its exposure. Each vision cost her, left her trembling, sometimes weeping, always exhausted. And each time, Raven was there, catching her when she swayed, bringing water without being asked, giving her space to recover without hovering. Afternoons, she explored. The fortress was vast, but its people made it feel smaller. Warriors who nodded respectfully, servants who smiled without fear, children who ran through the courtyards, their laughter echoing off ancient stone. And everywhere she went, she felt him. Not watching. Raven was too careful for that, but aware. Like some invisible thread connected them, letting each know where the other was at all times. Evenings were the hardest, because evenings they talked. It started accidentally. Vralia couldn't sleep after a particularly brutal vision. She'd felt Cassian's pain, the silver chains burning his skin, and wandered to the battlements for air. Raven was already there, staring at the stars like they held answers. Can't sleep either, she'd asked. I haven't slept properly in 3 weeks. They'd stood in silence, and somehow that silence became conversation. Then conversation became ritual. Every night the battlements, just the two of them and the endless sky. He told her about Cassian, the brother who laughed too loud and believed too fiercely in justice, who had started investigating the purge not to condemn their family, but to understand it. He said we couldn't heal what we refused to see, Raven murmured, that the kingdom would never truly be whole until we acknowledged what our ancestors did. He sounds brave. He's the best of us. Always has been. She told him about her mother. Fragments of memory, more feeling than image. Warm hands. A voice singing in a language Vralia didn't recognize. The scent of moonflowers. She died protecting me, Vralia said. I don't remember how I know that, but I do. She gave everything so I could survive. Then we'll honor that, Raven said quietly, by making sure her sacrifice meant something. On the fourth night, the air between them changed. Vralia arrived at the battlements to find Raven pacing, his usual control fraying at the edges. When he saw her, he stopped, and the rawness in his expression made her ribs constrict. What's wrong? The council. He spat the word like poison. They're questioning my judgment, asking why I've brought a wolfless stranger into the fortress, why I'm wasting resources on a brother they've already written off as dead. They don't know about me? About what I am? No, and they can't. Not yet. He ran a hand through his hair. If Merrick has allies on the council, and I'm certain he does, they'll know the moment I reveal you. They'll come for you before we can reach Cassian. Vralia moved closer. Then we move faster. It's not that simple. The visions drain you. I've watched you collapse 3 times this week. If I push you harder, that's my choice to make. And if you die, the words tore out of him. If I break you trying to save him, then at least I'll have died for something real. She held his gaze. Do you know how long I've waited to matter? To be more than Brecken's property? More than the wolfless embarrassment everyone pretends not to see? You've always mattered. No, I've always survived. There's a difference? She stepped closer still, close enough to see the gold striations in his eyes, the exhaustion carved into his features. You gave me a chance to mean something. Don't take that away because you're scared of losing me. Raven went still. Vralia, I know what you feel. The words escaped before she could stop them. The bond, or whatever it is between us. I feel it too. Every moment of every day. And I know you've been holding back, giving me space, trying to do the honorable thing. You deserve... What I deserve is the right to choose. She lifted her chin. So stop deciding for me. His composure cracked completely. The careful distance, the measured restraint, all of it shattered. I've been trying so hard not to want you. His voice was ragged. Every night I stand here telling myself you'll leave after 7 days, that you'll take your answers and your freedom and disappear, that I have no right to ask for more. What if I want to give more? He made a sound that was almost pain. You don't know what you're offering? Then show me. The moment stretched, trembling with possibility. Vralia saw the war in his eyes, duty against desire, caution against need. Saw him lose. She didn't let him come to her. Instead, she closed the distance herself, rising on her toes and pressing her lips to his. Raven froze for 1 heartbeat, 2. Then his arms wrapped around her like he'd been drowning and she was air. He kissed her back with a desperation that stole her breath. Not gentle, not careful, but hungry and aching and real. His hands cupped her face, her waist, pulled her closer until no space remained between them. When they finally broke apart, both gasping, Vralia pressed her forehead to his chest and felt his heart slamming against his ribs. That wasn't supposed to happen. He breathed. I don't care. His laugh was shaky. Neither do I. That's the problem. She looked up at him, and what she saw made her brave. Ask me to stay. After the 7 days? Ask me. I can't. Not yet. Not when you don't have all the answers you came for. Then give me the answers. She gripped his shirt. And ask me after. Raven kissed her forehead, soft and reverent. I will. I swear it. He walked her to her chamber, their fingers intertwined. At her door he kissed her again. Slower this time, deeper, a promise wrapped in heat. His body pressed her against the wood, and she felt every inch of his restraint trembling. Good night, Vralia, he murmured against her lips. Good night, Raven. He left before either of them could change their minds. Vralia leaned against the closed door, touching her swollen lips, and wondered when she'd stopped wanting to run. The morning after their kiss changed everything. Vralia was reading the final object, a signet ring belonging to one of the conspirators, when the vision hit her like a hammer. Merrick's study, map spread across a desk. A woman's voice, cold and familiar. The king's little pet is more dangerous than we thought. The silver blood. She could expose everything. Merrick's laugh. Then we end her. Tonight. Make it look like an accident. A fall from the battlements, perhaps. Fitting, given how much time she spends there. And if the king interferes? Then he joins his brother. I've waited 2 centuries for the Velmora line to weaken. I won't let some wolfless abomination ruin everything now. Vralia crashed back to reality, screaming. Raven caught her before she hit the floor. What did you see? Vralia, talk to me. They know. She was shaking so hard her teeth chattered. Merrick knows what I am. He's coming for me tonight, and he's going to kill you too. Raven's face went cold as winter steel. Tell me everything. She recounted the vision in fragments, the woman's voice, the plan, the reference to 2 centuries. By the end, Raven was pacing like a caged wolf. 2 centuries, he repeated. Merrick isn't just a conspirator. He was there for the original purge. That's impossible. He'd be ancient, unless he found a way to extend his life. Raven's jaw clenched. Lunaris blood. The legends say it had properties beyond sight. Healing, longevity, if Merrick harvested survivors in secret. The implication hit Vralia like a blow. He's been keeping Lunaris alive, draining them, and hiding it for 200 years. Raven stopped pacing. Cassian must have discovered the harvesting. That's why Myrick took him, not just to silence him, but to add him to the supply. We have to go, tonight, before they come for me. Absolutely not. I'm sending you somewhere safe While you what? Walk into a trap alone? Vralia grabbed his arm. They're expecting you to send me away. They're counting on it. The moment I leave this fortress, I'm vulnerable. You're vulnerable here too. But here, I have you. She held his gaze. We go together. Tonight. Before they make their move. If something happens to you, then I die fighting, not running. Her voice steadied. I spent 20 years as a victim, Raven. I won't die as one. He stared at her, fierce protectiveness and raw terror warring in his eyes. Then he pulled her close, crushing her against his chest. If I tell you to run, you run. No arguments, no heroics. And if you go down, I'm not leaving you. Vralia, that's my condition. Take it or I go alone. His laugh was helpless, almost broken. You're impossible. So I've been told. He kissed her hard, poured every fear and hope into it. When he pulled back, his eyes were blazing. Then we end this tonight. They didn't wait for the assassins. By sunset, Raven had assembled his most trusted warriors, 12 wolves who had served his family since before he was born. Soreth led them, her face grim with purpose. Merrick's estate is half a night's ride, she reported. But he'll have guards, wards possibly, if the Lunaris blood gives him power. Then we hit hard and fast. Raven strapped on his sword. No warnings, no negotiations. Vralia dressed in borrowed leathers, a blade at her hip that Soreth had pressed into her hands. Ever used one? The warrior asked. No. Then aim for soft spots and don't hesitate. Soreth's smile was sharp. You'll do fine. They rode through darkness, the moon hidden by clouds. Vralia clung to her horse, hyper-aware of Raven beside her, the tension radiating from his frame. This is it. Whatever happens tonight, nothing will be the same. Merrick's estate emerged from the forest like a wound, a sprawling manor house surrounded by gardens that felt wrong somehow, too lush, too green for the season. Blood-fed, Soreth muttered. The soil reeks of it. They dismounted at the tree line. Raven turned to Vralia, his expression carved from stone. Stay close. Don't engage unless you have to. I know. He kissed her once, quick and fierce. For luck. Then they moved. The infiltration went smoothly. Too smoothly. They slipped through the servants' entrance, moving through silent corridors toward the chamber Vralia had seen in her visions. The underground level, where Cassian was chained. The door was unlocked. Inside, they found Cassian exactly where the visions showed, hanging from silver chains, his body gaunt, his breathing shallow. But alive. Still alive. Brother. Raven's voice cracked as he rushed forward. Ray, it's a trap. The doors slammed shut. Merrick's laugh echoed from the shadows as torches flared to life, revealing 24 guards surrounding them. And at their center, the former chancellor himself, white-haired, elegant, with eyes that gleamed an unnatural silver. The prodigal king, come to save his bleeding heart, brother. Merrick's smile was poison. And you brought the little Lunaris. How thoughtful. Raven drew his sword. It's over, Merrick. The council knows everything. The council knows what I want them to know. They've been my puppets for decades. Merrick's gaze fixed on Vralia. But you, girl, you're the last loose thread. I thought I'd erased your bloodline completely. Finding you alive was inconvenient. Sorry to disappoint. Vralia's voice didn't shake. She was proud of that. You will be. Merrick raised his hand. Kill the king. Take the girl alive. She'll feed the harvest for years. The guards charged. What happened next would stay with Vralia forever. Raven moved like nothing she'd ever seen, a blur of steel and fury cutting through guards like wheat. Soreth and her warriors engaged from all sides, the chamber exploding into chaos. Vralia ran for Cassian. The silver chains burned her hands the moment she touched them, but she didn't let go. She felt power surge through her, that dormant force she'd suppressed her whole life. And suddenly the chains weren't burning anymore. They were responding. You are not our enemy, something whispered. You are our kin. The chains fell away. Cassian collapsed into her arms, barely conscious. The journals. Hidden panel. Fireplace. Vralia looked up just as Merrick broke through the fighting, heading straight for her. You think you can undo 2 centuries of work? His hand closed around her throat, lifting her off the ground. I've drained hundreds of your kind. Your power will sustain me for another decade. Vralia's hand closed around his wrist, and she pushed. Not a vision this time, an expulsion. Every stolen memory, every harvested soul, every moment of agony the Lunaris had suffered. She forced it all back into him at once. Merrick screamed. His skin cracked, silver light bleeding from the fissures. The stolen life force turned toxic, consuming him from within. He released Vralia, staggering back, but there was nowhere to run. Raven's sword took his head a moment later. Silence fell. Vralia knelt on the stone floor, gasping, her hands glowing faintly silver before fading to normal. Raven was at her side in an instant, pulling her close. Are you hurt? Vralia, talk to me. I'm okay. She leaned into him. Cassian. Help Cassian. They freed the remaining prisoners, 4 Lunaris survivors, barely alive, but breathing. Cassian was conscious enough to point them toward the hidden panel, where journals documented everything. The harvest, the conspirators, and the 200-year cover-up. Justice would come. But first, they needed to get home. They made it back by nightfall. Cassian was weak, but Raven pushed them hard. The 7th day was fading fast, and the oath still bound them. They arrived battered, exhausted, and alive. The council's reaction to the evidence was explosive. 3 lords arrested. 2 fled before they could be captured. The kingdom would be untangling Merrick's web for years. But that was politics, and politics could wait. On the 7th day, Vralia found Raven in the library, the archive room he'd promised her, filled with pre-purge records of her people. "Your heritage," he said, gesturing to the shelves. "Everything that survived. It's yours now." She ran her fingers along the spines, feeling centuries of history beneath her touch, her mother's bloodline, her grandmother's traditions, an entire culture she'd been denied. "You kept your promise." "I always do." He moved to stand beside her. "The 7 days are complete. The oath is fulfilled." Vralia's heart clenched. "So I'm free to go." "You've always been free." His voice was steady, but she heard the strain beneath it. "I'll give you gold, provisions, letters of introduction. You can go anywhere. Start over completely." "Is that what you want?" "It doesn't matter what I want. It matters to me." She turned to face him. "Ask me, Raven." His carefully held restraint gave way. "I can't ask you to stay in a kingdom that murdered your people, that tried to erase everything you are. I can't ask you to bind yourself to the blood of your executioners. You're not your ancestors. Their crimes are in my veins. And their redemption can be too." She stepped closer. "You spent 3 years trying to save your brother because he believed in justice. You brought me here not to use me, but to free me. You're not what they were. Vralia, I love you." The words fell out, simple and terrifying and true. "I love your guilt and your goodness, your ridiculous honor, the way you catch me when I fall, the way you made me believe I was never broken." Raven's breath caught. "Say that again. I love you. And if you ask me to stay, I will. Not for 7 days. Forever." He moved so fast she gasped, lifting her off her feet, spinning her around, kissing her like she was oxygen and he'd been suffocating for years. "Stay." He breathed against her lips. "Be my queen. Help me rebuild what my ancestors destroyed. Let me spend the rest of my life earning you." "Yes." She was laughing and crying at once. Yes to all of it. From the doorway, Cassian's voice drifted in. "Finally. I was starting to think I'd have to lock you both in a closet." They broke apart, laughing. Vralia buried her face in Raven's chest while he threatened his brother with creative violence. But his arms never let her go. The bonding ceremony took place under the full moon. Vralia wore silver, not white, but actual gleaming silver that caught the moonlight and made her glow. It was Cassian's idea, a reclaiming of what had been stolen. "Let them see exactly what they tried to destroy," he'd said, "and let them see you rise anyway." The court watched in stunned silence as their Alpha King bound himself to a Lunaris, the first union of its kind in 2 centuries. Some faces held horror, others held hope. History was shifting, and everyone knew it. When they spoke their vows, Vralia felt the bond snap fully into place. Not chains this time, but wings. Something that lifted them both higher than either could reach alone. Raven kissed her, and the crowd erupted. The celebration lasted until dawn. There was dancing and laughter and toasts that grew increasingly tearful as the wine flowed. The 4 rescued Lunaris were guests of honor, their silver blood no longer a death sentence but a treasure. Cassian danced with Soreth until both were breathless. Vralia suspected there was a story there, but that was a tale for another time. Later, much later, she and Raven slipped away to their chambers. He loved her slowly, reverently, mapping every inch of her skin like he intended to memorize her completely. And she loved him back with everything she had, every hidden part, every suppressed power, and every fragment of the girl who'd once believed she was broken. Afterward, wrapped in moonlight and furs, Raven traced lazy patterns on her shoulder. "Tell me something," he murmured. "Something I don't know." Vralia considered. "When I was little, before my mother died, she used to sing me to sleep in the old language. I didn't understand the words, but I remembered the melody." She hummed a few bars, soft and haunting. "I found the lyrics in your archive today. It was a lullaby about silver blood and moonlight, about children who would rise from ashes." Raven pulled her closer. She knew. Even then, she knew you'd survive. She knew I'd matter. Vralia's throat tightened. "She gave me everything so I could become this." "And what are you now?" She smiled against his chest. "Yours, and mine, and free." All three. They lay in comfortable silence. Outside, the kingdom was still in turmoil. Trials to conduct, alliances to rebuild, wounds that would take generations to heal. But here, in this room, there was peace. "Your turn," Vralia said. "Tell me something I don't know." Raven was quiet for a moment. "That night in the tavern, when you agreed to help me, I almost backed out. Told myself I had no right to drag you into this, that you deserved peace, not the chaos of my world. What stopped you?" "You did." His arms tightened. "The way you looked at me when I said please, like no one had ever asked you for anything, like you'd spent your whole life waiting for someone to see you as more than what you lacked." Her eyes stung. "And now? Now I see everything, the power you suppressed, the courage you've always had. The woman who faced down a 200-year-old monster and won." He kissed her hair. "You were never Wolfless, Vralia. You were something rarer, something better." "What's that?" "Yourself." He tilted her chin up. "Exactly as you were meant to be." She kissed him then, tasting salt from tears she hadn't noticed falling. The moon shone through the window, painting them both in silver. And Vralia thought about the girl she'd been, exhausted, indebted, convinced she would never belong anywhere. That girl wouldn't believe this, wouldn't trust it. But Vralia wasn't that girl anymore. She was the last Lunaris, the Alpha Queen. The woman who bled silver and refused to disappear. And for the first time in her life, she was exactly where she belonged. Where are you listening from? Let me know in the comments. And if you enjoyed this story, please subscribe. It's free, and it helps more people find these tales.